So for me, it's very simple. It's UConn. I know that we all like what Auburn is doing. We like how good their perimeter defenses looked. We like the fact that they're stifling and they get into the passing lanes. We like all that. But do we trust Auburn to play in a rock fight or an up-and-down game against UConn? UConn can play any game, any style that you want to bring to the table. Dan Hurley has it all up his sleeve. Dan Hurley, these kids, they come to the table and they've got a little tiny toolkit. Dan Hurley has a full construction crew. They got every tool in the bag. You want to play slow? You want to play fast?
They do, though.
You want to punch him in the mouth? You want to play the free throw game? It doesn't matter to Dan Hurley. He can go down 15 points the first half, still win that game by 25. It's UConn. UConn's winning it all. I'm sorry, it's not that hard. UConn is a very, very skilled team. They're head and shoulders above everybody else. And as much as I want to say that this is a murderer's row in the East, there's only two teams, only one team outside of UConn that fulfills that criteria. Iowa State is ruled out because they're the 57th offense,
they
number one
struggle
defense.
To get buckets, yeah.
Struggle to get defense. Illinois is ruled out. 92nd defense. They're a great bucket getter. In a sense, they're actually the mirror image of Iowa State. San Diego State's ruled out because they're a terrible offense. 60th in the country. 8th in defense. I could not trust San Diego State at all. So I'm going to choose UConn, Duke, Nevada, Tennessee. Those are my favorites. If you prefer a team, maybe like, I don't know, who would be the other team in the West that I could trust? If you don't like Nevada, take North Carolina. But I just can't do it with North Carolina. I just can't do it with North Carolina. I don't like non-3-point shooting teams at all. So we work our way backwards. So we just continue to put UConn where it goes. It's very simple when you do it that way. That's why I like going backwards. You just keep filling it in. UConn, UConn, UConn. And then in terms of like how we get there, to me it really doesn't matter. I like Northwestern a little bit more than I like FAU.
Me too.
I think FAU's fallen off a little bit. UAB, San Diego State, same to me. You could go either way in that bracket. I think Ken Pom has it rated about a pick. I'll go San Diego State in this one just based on pedigree, but really I've had UAB in other brackets as well. Auburn, I think, faces off against UConn. They have the pedigree. I don't think they get upset against Yale at all. BYU over Duquesne, absolutely. This is all in the Eastern bracket. Illinois over Morehead State. I'll take. I think Illinois actually gets beaten by Iowa State in that next weekend's round.
Oh, you think they're going to get to the Sweet 16? That'd be a big deal there for Illinois.
Or maybe they get knocked out by BYU, actually. So let's go Illinois over BYU. That would be a massive deal. My only problem with BYU is that when they go cold, it gets pretty ugly as well.
And they're not great defensively.
I like Drake. I like Washington State. I'm going to just fade myself because I have Drake in pretty much every other bracket, and I'm going to take Washington State. Take another Pac-12 dog.
Hey, it is the last year to do so.
Yep.
Might as well.
Iowa State, I'm going to take over South Dakota State. I'm going to take Iowa State over Washington State. And then we'll take Iowa State to play UConn. So that'll be our Elite Eight. Iowa State and UConn in the East. And we will take, at the end, I don't think I have a lot of time. We'll do it next segment. We'll finish out the West, the South, and the Midwest. But essentially what you need to know is that the Final Four is pretty much complete. UConn, Duke, Nevada, and Tennessee.
I have not heard anybody else with Nevada.
Not one human.
In the Final Four.
If this actually hits, clip that stuff. Oh,
yeah.
I almost cussed. Clip it, reverse it, flip it, and say, hey, TK brought it. If Nevada gets knocked out in the first round, pretend this tape doesn't even exist.
Yeah, just burn the tape.
Burn.
All right, let's move over to the Elite Eight in the East. UConn beats Drake. Drake, it's been real, it's been fun, but you're going down. UNC Baylor. Baylor's beating them, baby. Baylor's beating UNC. Houston, Kentucky. This is the game that I need. This is the game that I need.
This is the game you should not take Kentucky because you already have a Kentucky ticket. You already have a Kentucky ticket.
Just like
do not
basketball porn, the best defensive team in the country against a team that could legitimately score 120 points.
Yeah.
Defense wins. Houston gets the job done. Kelvin Sampson, I trust a little bit more than John Calipari. I'm going to say the score of that game, I'm going to go 65-61. I don't think it could be played in the 50s. I don't know that you could hold Kentucky to 50. I really don't. So give me Houston, though. And then Purdue, Tennessee. You know what? I'm going to do it.
You going to take Purdue?
Matt Painter gets it done this year.
God.
Zach Edey goes off in that game for 20 and 15. Purdue's heading to the Final Four. All right, UConn, Baylor. I'm going UConn. I'm going to be chalky. And then Houston, Purdue, I'm going Houston. And I'm going to take Houston to beat UConn. And I'm going to take the final score to be 63-57. What are you seeing with that game where, Sanford went from, I believe, 8.5 to 7.5?
Yeah, this is interesting. I think it got as low as 6.5 at BetMGM briefly on Tuesday after that McCullough news. And I talked to Seamus McGee, who, as I've told you two before, you two and Nick as well, you all know, Seamus is a real college basketball junkie. So it's awesome when you get an odds maker who's really, really dialed in to the sport that you're talking about in this case. This guy is really dialed in, so he knows his college hoops. But that said, this is more just speaking the facts about how this game is being bet. And what he told me a little bit earlier today, he said it's one-way traffic on Samford. It seems like people think Kansas is ripe for an upset. And, to your point, McCullough being out, Ryan, McCullough being out is clearly moving some people. And Kansas, as Seamus noted, Kansas is playing poorly of late, and that's also moving people. So they've had a couple of losses by quite a few points. We know they're dinged up, but Samford is definitely a very trendy dog, and I would say that's at BetMGM and some of the other odds makers I've talked to have noted there. Samford is trendy elsewhere as well on the spread and on the money line. They're not, they're liking the plus money, thinking there's going to be like Seamus McGee said, an outright upset.
In terms of these higher seeded schools, are there any book needs that we should kind of know about in those kind of either 116 matchups or 215 matchups?
I don't think that they, from what I saw, and I'm going to go back and kind of look at, since you mentioned it earlier, take a look at that email that John Ewing sent over this morning. But it seems like, when you've got those massive point spreads, those aren't the games that are necessarily going to attract a lot of money. Some of these teams are public enough that perhaps they will. But I don't think they're going to see any of the really good seeds have significant liability. Now, they might here or there, but some of the spreads that are maybe a little bit closer with a name brand, you'd think Kansas would, but everybody's off of Kansas right now, and a lot of people are doubting Purdue. Right now, a lot of people, as you've heard, I'm sure over the last couple of weeks, and you probably said it yourselves, people are doubting Purdue as well. I haven't heard anything that's too great a liability at this point. I think, where the liabilities might come in more so, Trista, and these will be fleshed out more tomorrow, is, people playing favorites on the money line parlays, almost like the NFL, almost like an NFL Sunday. You're going to have money line parlays running to, the UConns and Kentuckys and teams like that. Purdue for that matter, probably on money line parlays as well. You're going to see money line parlays run to these teams, and if the favorites do well over the course of the day, especially the name brand favorites, it could kind of evolve into like an NFL Sunday when the favorites have a good day, and the last big name brand of the day could very well decide whether the sports books are winners or whether the public betting masses are the winners.
Pat, the game I wanted to ask you about, the other one I wanted to ask you about, I really liked JMU, and I've heard everybody talk about JMU, and everybody likes JMU. In fact, I don't think I've heard one person make the case for Wisconsin yet. JMU went from 4.5-point dogs to 5.5-point dogs, so I'm guessing Wisconsin probably took some money. What do you think the book needs going to be there? Because everybody loves this James Madison team, but Wisconsin's coming off a Big Ten title game where they had a 10-point lead against Illinois that they blew late in that game. But what are you hearing about that one?
Right, and this was one I talked with Seamus McGee about as well, with, again, the trader for BetMGM. And this is interesting. To your point, Ryan, it did go up a point, 4.5 to 5.5, but this is all James Madison on the spread and on the money line, and I don't think that's going to change very much, over this next 2 days until this game takes place on Friday. What Seamus said was, as soon as I saw this game revealed on the selection show, I knew this was an upset the public would hammer, and they have. He said, we're going to need Wisconsin to win outright. They almost need Wisconsin just to win the game. If they don't, really? They'd like Wisconsin to cover the 5.5, but they'd really like them to just win the game because the ticket count and money on the money line is just hugely lopsided to James Madison here. And it's pretty lopsided to James Madison on the spread. But he said, we're going to need Wisconsin to win outright and hopefully cover the 5.5.